Picture this: a world reborn from the ashes of a great flood, where three brothers step off a wooden ark to seed the earth with nations. But what if the Bible holds a secret so profound it could reshape how you see humanity's story? What does it really say about the origins of Black people, those mighty kings and queens whose legacy pulses through Africa's heartlands? For centuries, their story has been veiled in mystery, twisted by misinterpretations, and overlooked by history's fleeting glance. Could there be truths hidden in the ancient pages of Scripture, waiting to be uncovered? If you're ready to dive into this journey of revelation, type 888 in the comments below, and join us as we unravel a story that's been hidden in plain sight for too long. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video to spread the truth. Let's embark on this epic quest together. Are you ready to discover what the Bible truly says? Imagine a world washed clean by a relentless flood, its waters receding to reveal a trembling earth ready for a new beginning. The air is thick with promise, the silence broken only by the creak of a wooden ark settling on a mountainside. From this vessel step 8 souls, chosen by God to restart humanity. Among them are Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, each destined to father nations, their footsteps echoing through history. Genesis chapter 10, verse 1 declares, "These are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood." This is no mere genealogy. It's a divine blueprint for humanity's rebirth, a map of tribes and tongues that would paint the earth with diversity. Picture yourself standing in that moment, the damp soil beneath your feet, the weight of a new world on your shoulders. Can you feel the gravity of being among the first to carve a path for civilizations? Shem's line would birth the Semitic peoples, Arabs, Jews, Syrians. Carrying the torch of prophets and promises, Japheth's descendants would scatter across Europe and Asia, their languages filling distant forests and plains. But it's Ham's story that pulls us into the heart of Africa, where the sun beats down on golden savannas and mighty rivers carve their timeless paths. Ham, the son whose name whispers of fire and resilience, is the key to a mystery that Scripture unveils with subtle power. The Bible points to Ham as the forefather of African nations, a truth etched in Genesis chapter 10, verse 6, which lists his sons, and the sons of Ham, Kush and Misraim and Phut and Canaan. Each name is a seed planted in history, sprouting into kingdoms that still shape our world. Kush, known as Kush in ancient texts, fathered the peoples of Ethiopia and Nubia, whose empires rose along the Blue Nile, their legacy glowing in the annals of history. Misraim, a name wonders, defying time. Phut, often linked to Libya and beyond, seeded wandering clans that claimed vast African territories. And then there's Canaan, whose name stirs a different tale, one of sacred lands and spiritual battles. But here's the mystery that lingers like a whisper in the desert wind. Why does Ham's story carry such weight, yet remain so misunderstood? His name in Hebrew evokes hot or burned, a poetic nod to the dark, radiant skin of his descendants, a divine signature of strength and beauty. Psalm 78:51 ties Ham to Egypt, calling it the tents of Ham, a fleeting but profound clue linking his line to Africa's heart. Can you picture it? The descendants of Ham, building cities under scorching suns, forging cultures that pulse through the African diaspora today. Have you ever wondered if your own heartbeat might echo the rhythms of those ancient builders, whose hands shaped wonders we still marvel at? Yet, there's a shadow cast over this story, a moment in Genesis 9 that has sparked debate for centuries. After the flood, Noah, the righteous man who walked with God, stumbled in a moment of human frailty. Having crafted wine from the vine, a new marvel in a reborn world, he drank deeply, unaware of its potency, and lay uncovered in his tent. Ham, his son, saw his father's shame, and instead of covering it, told his brothers. In that ancient culture, where honoring one's father was sacred, this act carried a weight we can scarcely grasp today. Genesis 9:25 records Noah's response, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren." Why Canaan, Ham's son and not Ham himself? What does this curse truly mean, and why has it been twisted to cast a shadow over Ham's entire lineage? The answer lies deeper, in a story of divine order, human choices, and a legacy far greater than any misinterpretation. Let's pause for a moment and step into the ancient world, where words carried divine weight and every name held a purpose. The story of Ham and his descendants, as told in Genesis, isn't just a list of names, it's a tapestry woven with divine intent, cultural echoes, and mysteries that still resonate today. But what does it all mean? Why has Ham's legacy, tied so deeply to Africa, been shrouded in misunderstanding? Let's peel back the layers, using scripture, history, and ancient texts to uncover the truth. Are you ready to see this story through new eyes? First, let's consider the name Ham itself. In Hebrew, Ham, or Kam, is linked to words meaning hot, burned, or dark. Some scholars suggest this could be a poetic allusion to the physical traits of his descendants, whose dark skin would become a hallmark of African peoples. But could it also point to something deeper, a resilience forged in the fire of a new world? The Book of Jubilees, an ancient Jewish text revered in early Christian circles, offers a striking detail. Ham was the first to build a city after the flood, naming it Clock in honor of his wife. Imagine the tenderness of that act, surviving a global catastrophe, This be a clue that Ham's legacy is not one of shame, but of creation and devotion. Now, let's tackle the so-called curse of Ham, a phrase that's been tragically misused. Genesis 9:25 makes it clear. Noah's curse fell on Canaan, Ham's youngest son, not Ham himself or his other sons, Kush, Misraim, and Phut. Why Canaan? The Book of Jubilees provides a fascinating hypothesis. It describes a family dispute after the flood, when Canaan defied a sacred agreement among Noah's sons. The earth was divided among Shem, Ham, and Japheth, with Ham's portion set in Africa's vast lands. But Canaan, against his father's wishes, claimed territory meant for Shem's line, lands we now know as Israel. This wasn't just a land grab, it was a rebellion against divine order. Ham, Kush, and Misraim stood against Canaan's choice, believing Africa was their God-given inheritance. Could Canaan's curse stem from this act of defiance, a fracture in the family's sacred pact? Here's another hypothesis. The curse was never about race or skin color, but about spiritual consequences tied to Canaan's descendants, who later clashed with Israel in biblical history. The Canaanites, known for their idolatry and conflict with God's chosen people, bore the weight of this curse in their spiritual legacy, not their physical appearance. Yet, history twisted this narrative. For centuries, some used this passage to justify prejudice against African peoples, ignoring that Kush, Misraim, and Phut, Ham's other sons, fathered mighty nations like Ethiopia and Egypt, untouched by any curse. Psalm 105:23 ties Egypt to the land of Ham, celebrating its role in God's plan, not condemning it. Isn't it sobering to think how a single misread verse could fuel such division? Let's explore one more angle: the cultural and historical context. Ancient Jewish and African traditions consistently link Ham's line to Africa's heartlands. Kush, for instance, is synonymous with Ethiopia and Sudan in scripture, a name meaning black in some ancient tongues. Misraim, still called Misr in Arabic, anchors Egypt's identity. Phut's descendants spread across Libya and beyond, their nomadic paths shaping Africa's vastness. These connections aren't just biblical, they're echoed in archaeology and oral traditions. Excavations along the Nile reveal the grandeur of Kushite kingdoms, while genetic studies trace African migrations back to ancient roots. Have you ever wondered how these threads, scripture, science, and stories passed down by elders, converge to affirm a shared heritage? But here's the lingering question. Why does this matter? The story of Ham isn't just about ancient genealogies. It's a mirror reflecting God's design for humanity. The diversity of Ham's descendants, from the pyramid builders of Egypt to the gold-rich empires of Mali, was no accident. It was a deliberate stroke in God's masterpiece, a celebration of beauty in every hue. What if the Bible more about unity, showing how all peoples trace back to one family, one ark, one creator? Could this truth reshape how we see each other today? In a world still wrestling with prejudice and separation, as we stand amidst the echoes of Ham's legacy, tracing the footsteps of his descendants across Africa's sunlit savannas and beyond, we're not just uncovering an ancient story. This is more than a dusty genealogy or a relic of a bygone era. It's a living invitation, a call to see ourselves and our world through the lens of God's grand design. The Bible's account of Ham, Kush, Misraim, Phut, and Canaan isn't just history. It's a mirror reflecting who we are today and a challenge to live out a deeper truth. So, what does this mean for us now, in a world where divisions still cast long shadows? Let's dive into the spiritual and modern significance of this story and ask, how might it change the way you walk through life? First, let's consider the spiritual weight of this narrative. Genesis 10 doesn't just list names, it reveals God's heart for humanity. After the flood, when the earth lay bare and vulnerable, God chose one family to repopulate the world, scattering his image across continents in countless hues and cultures. Ham's line, rooted in Africa, was no afterthought. It was a vibrant thread in God's tapestry, woven with purpose. Psalm 139:14 declares, "I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works." Can you feel the power of that truth? Every descendant of Ham, from the builders of Egypt's pyramids to the poets of modern African diaspora, carries the divine spark, a reflection of God's creativity. What might shift in your heart if you saw every person, regardless of skin or story, as a sacred piece of this mosaic? This story also challenges us to confront the distortions that have plagued history. The misreading of Noah's curse on Canaan as a blanket condemnation of Ham's descendants fueled centuries of injustice, from slavery to segregation. Yet, Scripture tells a different story, one of dignity, not division. Cush's Ethiopia birthed queens like Sheba, whose wisdom dazzled Solomon. Misraim's Egypt cradled Moses and sheltered the infant Jesus. These were not cursed peoples, but nations central to God's redemptive plan. Have you ever paused to wonder how different our world might be if we'd always read these verses with humility, seeing them as a celebration of diversity rather than a tool for prejudice? The Bible calls us to reject such lies and embrace the truth that every tribe and tongue is bound by the same breath of God. Now, let's bring this into our modern world. Today, as we navigate a landscape of social tensions, cultural clashes, and debates over identity, the story of Ham offers a radical perspective. Science, too, echoes this unity. Geneticists have traced humanity's roots back to Africa, confirming what oral traditions and scripture have long whispered. We are one family, our DNA intertwined across millennia. Archaeologists uncover artifacts, pottery, tools, temples, that testify to the brilliance of African civilizations, from the Kingdom of Aksum to the Mali Empire. These discoveries aren't just academic, they're a reminder that the legacy of Ham's descendants pulses in the music, art, and resilience of African peoples today. Can you imagine standing in a bustling market in Lagos or a quiet village in Kenya, knowing your ancestors might have walked the same paths as Cush's children? This story is a call to action. It urges us to honor the dignity in every person, to reject narratives that diminish anyone's worth, and to celebrate the diversity God wove into humanity. In a world quick to draw lines between races, nations, or beliefs, the Bible points us back to a single ark, a single family, a single creator. What would it look like to live this truth? to see your neighbor, your coworker, or even a stranger as kin, bound by the same ancient bloodlines. This isn't just a spiritual ideal, it's a practical challenge. It might mean listening to stories different from your own, advocating for justice, or simply marveling at the beauty of God's varied creation. The story of Ham also invites us to reflect on our own place in God's plan. Whether your roots trace to Africa, Europe, Asia, or beyond, you are part of this grand narrative. Your life, your choices, your faith, they ripple through time, just as Ham's did when he built a city for his wife or stood against Canaan's defiance. Have you ever considered how your actions today might shape the legacy of generations yet unborn? The Bible doesn't just tell us who we were, it calls us to decide who we will be, a people who build bridges, not walls, who honor the Creator by honoring His creation in all its forms. As we draw this journey to a close, standing in the shadow of ancient rivers and sun-scorched plains, we've uncovered a story far richer than any history book could contain. The legacy of Ham and his descendants, Kush, Misraim, Phut, and Canaan, is not a tale of curses or division, but a testament to God's breathtaking design for humanity. From the golden sands of Egypt to the vibrant heartlands of Ethiopia, their story pulses with resilience, dignity, and divine purpose. Genesis 10 and the whispers of the Book of Jubilees don't just trace bloodlines, they reveal a creator who delights in the kaleidoscope of cultures, skin tones, and dreams that make up his world. Isn't it humbling to realize that every one of us, no matter where we stand, sacred tapestry, bound by the same breath that filled Noah's Ark with hope? This isn't just an ancient tale, it's a mirror for today. In a world still fractured by prejudice, where old misinterpretations linger like stubborn shadows, the story of Ham calls us to a higher truth. It reminds us that diversity is no accident. It's a divine masterpiece, painted with intentional strokes across the canvas of time. Every person you meet, whether in a crowded city square or a quiet village path, carries the image of God, a spark of the same Creator who set Ham's children to build empires under Africa's blazing sun. What might change if we lived this truth? If we saw every face as a reflection of our shared origin, every story as a thread in the same grand narrative? So here's the challenge. Let this story stir your soul. Let it reshape how you see yourself, your neighbor, and the world around you. The Bible's message is clear. Psalm 133 verse 1 declares, "Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity." This is your invitation to embrace that unity, to reject division, and to honor the beauty God crafted in every corner of humanity. What will you do with this truth? Will you carry it forward, sharing it with others, living it in your actions, and seeking God's wisdom to guide your steps? I want to hear from you. If this journey opened your eyes or touched your heart, drop a comment below and write, "I'm awake," to let me know you're with me in this revelation. Share your thoughts. What part of this story hit you the hardest? Did it make you see the Bible or your own heritage in a new light? Your voice matters, and I read every single message. If this exploration blessed you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your support keeps this mission alive. Consider a super thanks if you feel led to fuel more stories like this. Together, we're uncovering the truths God has hidden in plain sight, and every step you take helps spread this light. Before you go, let's keep this journey going. Click the video on your screen to dive into another biblical mystery, perhaps the untold story of Solomon and Sheba, or the secrets of Egypt's role in God's plan. Let's continue exploring the wonders of Scripture together. May God's face shine upon you. May His wisdom guide your path. And may you walk boldly in the knowledge that you are part of a story far greater than yourself. Be blessed, and I'll see you in the next chapter of this divine adventure.